Hey guys, so I have a couple of things I wanted to talk about, and one of them is this fire here. Because I don't know how to flip the camera. I guess you can't. I googled it. If any of y'all are smart enough and know how to flip it while you're recording, let me know. But it's true what they say that a match doesn't lose anything by starting another, or a candle doesn't lose anything by starting another flame. And that's true of us as well. We don't, when we help motivate someone or we help someone, we don't lose anything. When we give somebody inspiration and motivation, we don't lose any of our inspiration or motivation. In fact, we grow and we gain. When we give other people our inspiration and our motivation, we become more motivated and more inspired. We only grow by helping people. We don't shrink. And just like when a flame starts another flame, or a fire starts another fire, it doesn't lose anything. It doesn't diminish. It can only grow. And every night when I start that fire to warm up my house, I I do it as old school as possible. I don't use any lighter fluid. I don't use any starter logs. I use some kindling, which is just small wood or paper, junk mail, or stuff like that, because I try to recycle as much as possible. And anyone that's ever started a fire like that, they know that you have to blow on it. You have to give it the right amount of breath. If you give it too much, you blow it right out, you diminish it before it has a chance to start. And if you don't give it enough, then it'll never grow. It'll never prosper. It'll never become anything. And I think about how when God created Adam, he breathed life into him. He blew life into him. And God is such all-knowing and so amazing that he knew the right amount to blow in him. He knew the right amount of life, the right amount of essence, the right amount to breathe in him, to get him going, to get him started. That's just how amazing God is. And the next thing I wanted to talk about is wealth. Everyone, a lot of pastors and teachers and ministers, they tell you tithe, 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 and God will bless you, and he'll give you in bounty, and he'll give you in bounty. And that's only part of the truth, is that part. But the thing is you have to give from the heart. You have to give a meaningful amount. You don't give begrudgingly. It's all about the attitude of giving, the attitude of why you gave, because God looks on the heart. And you got people that say, well, I've been tithing, but he still hasn't blessed me. He still hasn't given this, and he still hasn't given that. Well, the thing about it is God gives us daily what we need. God gives us the way we live. We live one day at a time. So he gives us what we need day by day. And he will give us what we need beforehand to weather storms. He'll give us all that. And it says right here in Exodus 16:16. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather it every day gather it. Jack, I'm trying to make a video, dude. Thank you. You're being rude. Exodus 16:16. Do you need to go outside? I'm going to have to redo this whole video. This whole video. You were just outside. Lay down. All the way. Lay down. Stay. Exodus 16:16. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather of it every man of you as much as you can eat. You shall take 1 omer piece according to the number of persons whom each of you has in his tent. And the sons of Israel did so, and they gathered, some more, some less. But when they measured it with 1 omer, he that gathered much had nothing over, and he that gathered little had no lack. Each gathered according to what he could eat. And Moses said to them, Let no man leave any of it till the morning. But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and became foul. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they gathered it, each as much as he could eat, but when the sun grew hot, it melted. On the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers apiece. When all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, This is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is the day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So, just as God gives us our life day by day, God gives us what we need day by day. And he'll give us before time what we need to weather storms, or before time what we need for rest. He gives for us what we need. And he does this by faith. When we have the faith that he will provide, then he will provide. And when we have the faith that he provides for us, then ultimately he will bless us abundantly. But when we acquire wealth and when we acquire things outside the will of God, it'll become a burden to us. Genesis 12:13. This is when Abram and Sarai, this is before they become Abraham and Sarah. So this is when Abram and Sarai are going into the Pharaoh, going into Egypt. In Genesis 12:10. Now there was a famine in the land. So Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai his wife, I know that you are a woman beautiful to behold, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, This is my wife. Then they will kill me, but they will let you live. Say, You are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared on your account. When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw the woman and what was beautiful. And when the prince of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to the Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into the Pharaoh's house. And for her sake he dealt well with Abram. He had sheep, oxen, he-donkeys, manservants, maidservants, she-donkeys, and camel. So Pharaoh gave Abram wealth. Abram acquired wealth from a misdoing. That's looked over. So let's continue to see what happens. But the Lord affected Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is it that you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and be gone. And Pharaoh gave men's order concerning him, and they set him on his way with his wife and all that he had. So you're thinking, Abram made out pretty good here. He got to keep gold, and he got to keep animals. He got to keep many things. Okay, but remember, he acquired this wealth against the will of God, and he acquired it in a bad way. So let's continue. So Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him. Lot is his nephew. Now Abram was very rich in cattle and silver and in gold, and he journeyed on as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, to the place where he had made an altar at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. And Lot, who went with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, so that the land could not support both of them dwelling together. For their possessions were so great that they could not dwell together. There was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and the herdsmen of Lot's cattle. At that time the Canaanites dwelt in the land. Then Abram said to Lot, Let there be no strife between you and me, and between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are kinsmen. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself from me. So Abram acquired this wealth against the will of God. He acquired it in bad ways. He acquired more than what God was giving him. He acquired things outside of the faith of God. He didn't have faith that God would take care of him and his wife. But instead he took things in his own hands and he acquired. And he acquired this wealth, and it was a burden. It became a burden on the land, and it became a burden on his relationships with his wife, because he gave his wife to another man. It became a burden with his family. He had to separate himself from his nephew. It was a bad deal. And then later on, Lot gets kidnapped, and Abram, on the side of God, he goes and he rescues Lot. And him and his, I think it was like 219 men, they go and they take on like 5 kings, and they're victorious. They defeat probably thousands of people because he looked to God. He had faith in God, and he did what God told him to do. And during that time, Abram acquired wealth by doing so, and it was the will of God at this time. And he meets a godly priest, which becomes a type for Jesus. It's a foreshadowing type deal. Y'all need to get in here and read Genesis 14 to know what I'm talking about. I can't give you all the answers. You got to do some work yourself. But basically, when he comes across this high priest, he tithes him. He gives him 10% of the bounty, and so it becomes a blessing. The wealth becomes a blessing. So what we see here is Abram acquired wealth without faith. He acquired it outside the will of God, and it became a burden. It caused strife between him and his family, and he lost the relationship with Lot. He lost time with him. And when he turned back to God and he built a relationship with God and he moved by the faith of God, then he acquired even more. Not only did God provide for him day by day, but God gave him more than he could ever had. God blessed him. So when we tithe, or when we spend time with God, it shouldn't be our extra time. It shouldn't be our abundance time. We shouldn't be out there fighting the daily struggles, trying to acquire things we don't need. Just as we live day by day, you can't live tomorrow, and you can't live in yesterday. You can only live today. You can only live day by day. God gives us day by day what we need. And when we have faith in him, he will give us in an abundance. He will bless us. So just like the widowed woman who only had 1 silver coin to give, Jesus said, she who gave the least surely gave the most. For she gave all that she had, but everyone else gave out a surplus. So they might have tithed more money than she did, but they tithed the extra money they had. They didn't tithe enough that it was a sacrifice. They didn't tithe enough that it put them in a burden and then have faith that God was going to take care of them. No, they gave the extra. They gave what they didn't need. But this little old widow woman, she gave all that she had because she believed that God was going to provide for her day after day. And so she gave the most. And that's the problem. When we're tithing and we're spending time with God, or we're making sacrifices for God, and we're giving these things over to him, are you giving enough that it just slightly hurts? Or are you giving what you're comfortable with? Are you giving out of excess? Or are you giving out of all that you have? And God knows, and you know. So instead of being out there working, trying to buy a yacht, or out there trying to buy a vacation home, or trying to do all this other stuff, spend that time with God, and he'll bless you. Give out of all that you have, not out of abundance, not out of excess. Give just enough that it puts you out of way, just enough I'm not saying sell your house and give all that you have and live on the streets. But I'm saying give just enough that it slightly hurts, just enough that, boy, I gotta have some faith here. I gotta live on faith. And when you start living on that faith, it stops hurting. It stops becoming a burden. And then God's gonna bless you. And that's a part that most preachers and miss. They just tell you keep giving, keep giving, keep giving to the church. God's gonna bless you. Keep giving. You're over here writing that check with anguish, and you're over here grumbling. You must give from a joyous spirit. As always, peace be with y'all.